How do you take a visionary idea for a new video game and execute it fantastically on the very first attempt? And how do you take a linear franchise, deeply rooted in its own ways, and create an amazing open-world experience that would deviate so far from its origins? The Witcher 3 is an amazing game that has achieved this despite the series never attempting an open world before. On all accounts, The Witcher 3's massively epic open world should have failed. It was the very first open-world Witcher game attempted by CDPR during a time when many open-world games were still trying to figure out the best way to deliver an experience that was both large yet focused. It's amazing to me that a tiny company pulled off building such a compelling open-world video game on their very first try. Some would say, the best open-world game ever created. Open-world games can be very complicated, with so many moving parts and spider webs of if this happens, trigger this story moment, move this subplot here, or lock off A if B happens. They need to give choice and be sprawling, yet keep a centralized story as to not lose the interest of the player. Building a good one requires an extreme amount of care and detail. The successful open-world design is something companies like Ubisoft and EA have struggled again and again to find after years and years of trying. The pitfalls many open-world games can fall into are many. OW games can appear vast as an ocean yet be shallow as a puddle underneath. They can offer hundreds of hours of content, yet maybe only 20 of it being relevant, interesting, and in support of the story experience.
You know I don't find that amusing.
They can make us laugh, cry, hunt for treasure, seek adventure, and discover exciting gameplay scenarios on the fly if they are prepared effectively. More importantly, they give us a chance to create our own stories the way we want, to pursue what compels us, and to engage with who we care about. That is the allure of the open world game. They do this by creating space, not just in terms of size or geography, but in the process of how we play through a game. Players get to choose what content they take in. They choose, sometimes, who lives and who dies, how things are resolved, and how the story plays out. So in a sense, open world games aren't restricted by the contemporary linear game design of do this and then this. But they aren't free from it either. Every open world game must deliver a story and come to an end, but it's how they get there that is the special part, or in some cases, the bad part. It's common for a bad open world game to simply cram its story inside a vacuum with countless hours of filler content. Many of those games are massive, yet they also have massive failings. Stories that don't have a climax, plots that are sprawling yet never really come together, underdeveloped characters to whom we interact with so little, and pointless side content that is simply there to make the game quote-unquote bigger. Given its first go-around, I would say it would have been very easy for The Witcher 3 to fall into these trappings. But The Witcher 3 took an enchanting linear story and wrapped it inside a mound of compelling side content, activities, and distractions. Oh, and the characters are absolutely amazing. In successful open-world games, simple side missions like helping someone can feel important when they're critical to the story, or to the compassion, indifference, or tyranny for that matter, of the character you play. Content isn't just there to pad out the game either, it's executed with care, as are the people living in the world. NPCs aren't just nameless faces, they have stories, they have routines, needs and wants that you can choose to explore, and they have emotion. And the quest structure is numerous, yet not overwhelming, quality over quantity. The Witcher 3 had no prior experience to tackle these obstacles and make the transition from its prior straight-line games, or to be as good as it is. In fact, it was a series that was anchored to linearity, small scopes, and pre-existing plots. The original Witcher was a branching style game where you had some freedom, yet your objective was absolute. You could not pass on to the next act before completing the current one, and once you did, you couldn't go back to the prior area. There were some optional things and choices that would affect future plot development, but for the most part it was a very linear game. Now The Witcher 2 was even more linear than the first. It was a very small game in scope, yet ferociously detailed and packed with surprises. Its characters were intimately woven into the urgency, yet its world was dainty in comparison to The Witcher 3. With a smaller capacity and a quick-cut narrative, you were forced to stay on board with the moving narrative. Everything felt important, from the prologue siege, to the prison escape, to the hangings in Flotsam, the rebellion, and the mage crisis in the final chapter. Everything was passionately linear. The Witcher 3 came around and said, nope, we're trying something new. We're going to take what made our games great and give you a massive, substantial open world on top of it that actually makes the game better for being there. It's a game that should have failed, but succeeded tremendously. I mean, how often does a game studio come around and not just make a video game concept and make it good, but make it the best of the best on their very first attempt? The Witcher 3's political style story was riveting, weaving a Game of Thrones style narrative effortlessly around a bevy of side content, monster hunting, treasure seeking, and complicated interpersonal relationships. You could truly get caught up in the world and its people, its stories, and its conflicts. Just about every NPC relevant to a side mission had optional dialogue, impeccably spoken, and lines upon lines of it. If you cared, exploring their interesting tales, struggles, and tribulations was a joy because the game made it so effortless. Yeah, okay, they repeated some of the voices and hairdos from time to time, which was kind of freaky to be honest, but each character was truly believable. I've never played a game that had so many talented voice actors or such believable facial animation, save LA Noire. The quests that you would gather from any of the supporting cast, including Kira, Letho, Fringilla, Priscilla, Sarah, or Roach, also felt important because they were so well done. There were so many amazing adventures to go on, from the Tower of Mice, of Swords and Dumplings, Wannabe Witcher, Ghost of the Past, and Possession. But the cool thing was, they weren't just cool for the sake of being cool. They were based off people, or a conflict or a crisis related to the world, another person, or an internal struggle. There were so many optional things that mattered with characters that mattered, like the Baron and his wife, the Peller, Triss, Yen, or Radovid. When games flesh things out, build things off quality, it's hard not to get caught up in it, and The Witcher 3 managed to do that for me, definitely. But of course, The Witcher 3 isn't a perfect game. The combat was just whatever, at best.
Guess I gotta make this climb.
And often it felt like there was a little bit too much going on for any one moment during the game. Not every quest was good either, in fact, some of them were pretty pointless. Also, whoever decided to put all the candles near doors was being rather naughty. But when you add up the fact that The Witcher 3 had a compelling main narrative, satisfying side content, and plenty of adventure to be had in an amazing, beautiful open world, all in its very first attempt, then that is one hell of an achievement. The best part is The Witcher 3 managed to do all of this while avoiding the many pitfalls of modern open world games. How they managed to pull all of that off with a small development team and nothing to go on, but in fact the opposite of what they were trying to strive for, is pretty damn fantastic. And then to do it all over again in what would be one of the greatest DLCs ever created. Despite its misgivings, The Witcher 3 was truly a masterpiece of a game that probably should have failed. Thanks for watching, guys, and Witcher fans out there. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in our next video.